Over the last year, we've seen a lot of news on orcas. Headlines ranging from, orcas attacking boats to orcas playing with seals and with their meals to orcas sort of spy hopping and looking at dogs on a boat. Really ranging, some good, some bad. Here's my worry as a scientist and a science communicator is that orcas are getting a bad reputation. And I want to talk about it on today's episode of Ocean Talk because I'm getting a little worried, folks. Let's start the show. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Ocean Talk, where I talk all things oceans, including conservation, so that you can be more aware of what's happening with the ocean and you can live for a better ocean by taking action. That's what we do here at Ocean Talk and on this channel. Just a little bit of an announcement before we start this episode. I'm going to be putting up a lot of different content. Over the last little bit, I've been putting up ocean news. I'm going to start putting up some of the interviews that I do in my podcast, How to Protect the Ocean, so that you get a video podcast. It's just a way so that you can learn about the people who are involved in oceans and what they're doing and get to know them a little bit, because I get to know them and I really like them and I want you to like them as well. So you get a chance to like them as well and get to know more of the people. We've got some great episodes that we've put up on How to Protect the Ocean podcast, on the audio podcast, but now we're going to put those interviews up, just the interviews up. We're going to hear about Neil the seal. We're going to hear about a lot of different things. I don't want to give it all away, but just if you want to continue to get those episodes and you want to hear those interviews, just subscribe and hit that notification button so that every time I put something out, you're going to know about it and you're going to stay aware of what's happening in the ocean. But let's get back into this episode, because this is something that I've been thinking about for a long time. Orcas, we love them. We know them as killer whales. We know them as orcas. I prefer orcas because killer whales, they typify what they are. They're an apex predator, right? They're about 25, 30 feet long. They weigh about 8,000 tons, not 8 tons, 8,000 tons. They're huge. They're massive. They're like the apex predator. They take down sharks, they take down seals, they take down whales, even blue whales in some situations. So they are a great predator, not only just as an individual, but as a pod. That's what makes them so great. They're so intelligent, they communicate so well, and they help each other feed, which we don't really see a lot in nature, if we see that ever. So it's really great to be able to study them, to be able to learn about them. But the problem is right now they're getting a lot of press over the last couple of years, really. But over the last year, we saw, and I've been observing, as someone who is addicted to social media and short form videos and things, I've seen a lot of videos that I did not like about orcas from a lot of different accounts. It really had to do with the orca population that is in the Iberian coast, right near the Strait of Gibraltar, near the Mediterranean, the entrance to the Mediterranean, and the Atlantic side. This pod, which is endangered, is kind of making it difficult for people with sailboats. About 40-foot sailboats, they are coming into the Strait of Gibraltar, or just before they arrive on the Atlantic side, a pod of orcas will come in and start playing with it a little bit. And the headlines come out. There's like this headline where it says attacking boats, and you always use that, attack boats, right? These headlines are not doing them any kind of justice. It's making it look like, hey, these orcas are attacking. I've seen like on TikTok and on Instagram, I've seen the comments. These boats are coming in from the Atlantic to the Strait of Gibraltar. Before they get there, this pod comes up and starts interacting with the boats. And when I mean interacting with the boats, a lot of times they're ramming the boats. They're chewing on the keel, which is like the bottom part of the boat that keeps a sailboat sturdy. They're ramming it. They're pretty much scaring the bejesus out of some of the people. Now, this just hasn't happened in 2023. This happened in 2022, 2021, and 2020. This has been happening for a little bit. Unfortunately, over the last few years, they've sunk at least 4 boats that we know of. Nobody's been hurt. Nobody died, which is great to hear. But it's definitely a scary situation when you have this massive animal who is running at you constantly, and it's like a number of them. It's not just one. And they're running at your boat, and of course, it's an expensive boat. I know a lot of people don't have a lot of sympathy for people with yachts or these types of boats, but it's expensive. I wouldn't want a boat to sink at all, and it's scary. It's definitely scary. And when your boat is sinking and you have to bail out, you're worried what's going to happen in the water. These animals are around. They have the ability to hurt us, but they don't, and they haven't, not in the wild. And so but it's still scary. Right? We know it's still scary, but the headlines around it and the comments in the video that I see, these videos that I see, you know, it's like, oh, the orcas are getting their revenge. Oh, the orcas are mad about how we're treating the planet. Oh, this is their fight against climate change and they're trying to get back at us. That's not happening. They're not vengeful. They're not vengeful at all. Researchers have said that these animals, they like to play, they get bored. And a lot of times when they're swimming in a water column, when there's not a lot of things to do, they get bored and they start looking at these boats and they're saying, hey, let's play around with this. We could maybe practice for hunting. So some researchers think that maybe there's this one orca called White Gladys. She has a couple of calves, and you know, these calves are going at the boat in different times, and they keep going over, and she's showing them how to do it. So the researchers are thinking that maybe she's teaching them how to hunt, just by using the boats, because they know the boats won't hurt them, right? They're also thinking that maybe they're just playing. These are orca calves. These are like juveniles. They want to play around, and the thing is they're a very physical animal. So when you have a 25 foot that's 8,000 pounds, you know, wants to play using its physicality, it's gonna look brutal. It's gonna look, you know, big. It's gonna look strong. It's gonna, you know, bounce you around or on your boat and stuff. I've seen some videos where the animal just takes it, orca just takes the keel underneath and just drives the boat a little bit, like just takes it to a certain place. Not far, not fast, but it takes it around. These animals need stimulation, and that's how they get it. And so a lot of researchers are thinking that's what it is. However, there are a lot of headlines where like, why are these orcas doing what they're doing? Why are they attacking, using this aggressive kind of language to make it look like they're trying to hurt humans? And I know that orcas, because they're predators, they can eat things in brutal ways. You know, some people think it's brutal, like when they eat great white sharks. They don't just eat the whole great white shark, they take it apart. They actually, one will hold it, and the other one will precisely take out its liver, because the liver is that fatty part, and it's got a lot of energy, and that's what they like. That's why they eat seals, because they're basically fat. You know, that's why they eat whales, because they have a lot of fat on them, and it's a lot of energy for them. And so they'll actually just pull out the liver and then leave the rest of the body, because it's not worth it. You know, there's been other reports that, you know, with mola molas, the sunfish, they actually take it in half and they eat the body, and then they wear the one part of it as a hat. I'm going to talk to a researcher that says that this actually happens. They say that they eat the brains of billfish or swordfish, just the brains, and they leave the rest. They eat the tongues of larger whales like humpbacks and blue whales. So there's a lot of different aspects of orcas that could look very brutal. They throw dolphins and they throw seals in, like, up in the air, but as they eat it, it's almost like they're playing with their food. But the problem is like when we see these types of behaviors, we're like, oh my God, these are brutal animals. They're, you know, they eat all their food, like they play with their food, they eat the brains, they eat liver, but they're really smart. As a biologist, as a marine biologist and a science communicator, I look at these animals and I'm like, these are fascinating animals. The way they hunt, the fact that they hunt for other animals with other individuals within their pod is fascinating. You've seen the videos where two orcas will be on one side of an ice float and one orca will be on the other, and there's a seal on the ice float. And the two orcas that are on one side will swim up as fast as they can, cause a tidal wave onto the ice float that will push the seal closer to the individual that's by itself waiting for the seal to come into its mouth. And eventually, they'll just keep doing that, and eventually the seal will just go right into its mouth, feeding another individual of their pod. That's pretty cool, right? It's pretty intelligent. The way they communicate, the way they structure their pod, where the males are on the outside and the females, they're more of like a maternal domination of the pod. They look after the pod, are in the middle with the calves, and they take care of each other. The fact that they mourn their young if they die. This is all evidence of a highly intelligent, highly emotional animal. And it's an animal that we should be understanding more and studying more. And my worry is that a lot of people are not studying these animals. A lot of people are actually trying to discredit these animals. A lot of people are actually trying to make them look like they're savages. A lot of people are trying to make it look like they're brutal animals that will kill anything in their sight and will get revenge. And that is not true. And some people are like, Andrew, you're overreacting. This is not going to happen to these animals. People love orcas. Well, I can say the same thing that happened to sharks, except the reverse. People are always afraid of sharks. And then Jaws comes out. People are really afraid of sharks. If anybody, when they were a kid, watched Jaws, I mean, there's a good chance that you didn't want to swim in your pool, or you didn't want to swim in a lake, a freshwater lake where, you know, you wouldn't see Jaws, you wouldn't see a great white shark, you wouldn't see a shark at all. You know, a lot of people say, I saw Jaws and I'm not going into the ocean ever again. I'm afraid of sharks. People are always afraid of sharks. That happens all the time, even to this day. But the reputation has gotten better over time, despite some mockumentaries that show, you know, that the megalodon still exists and it's hunting people and stuff like that, which is all fake. You know, there are reputable shows that are showing this to discredit the reputation of sharks. There are a lot of shows, there's a lot of social media that talk about shark attacks, that talk about shark bites, that sharks are killing people, sharks are killing other animals, and people eat it up. We are worried. We're fascinated by sharks, but a lot of people are very afraid of sharks. They will not go in the water because of sharks, whether they see a shark or not, or, you know, knowing that the probability of being bitten by a shark is just negligible. It just doesn't happen all that often. It happens, but just not all that often. So having, you know, an animal such as a shark, any shark, that gets this bad reputation just from a couple of movies, you know, you look at orcas and you're afraid of the same thing. I know I am. I'm worried the fact that, you know, if they make a movie about orcas or they start showing orcas on social media in a dangerous way, you just put, like, it doesn't take much. An orca could be swimming, you put some scary music behind it, and all of a sudden you're like, what's this orca up to? And then you have people online that kind of make up stories about these orcas and you're just like, what is this orca doing? You know, is it hunting humans? Why is it, you know, swimming around humans so much? Why is it so scary? Even though orcas in the wild there's never been a reported incident of orcas hurting humans ever. So it concerns me that this is happening. And so that's why I'm making this video. And the way to stop it is for everybody who's making videos about orcas is to show their intelligence, to show how cool they are, to show how strong they are, to show how they are an apex predator, but in a positive way, and show why it's good to have orcas around, why it's good for the planet, why it's good for the ocean, and why it's good for us to keep them around. Because my worry is that the reputation will go down so much that people are going to be worried about them, and then they're going to start killing them. And that we cannot have. So that's my message. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What do you think about orcas? You think they're getting a bad reputation? Is it dangerous for them? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to hear more about oceans and you don't get enough about on this channel, well, first subscribe to this channel. If you want to hear my audio podcast, just click the link in the show notes below and you'll be able to go right over there, and you can subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and all the major things, and go to the website as well. I want to thank you so much for listening to this episode of Ocean Talk. I'm your host, Andrew Luna. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time, and happy conservation.